Now, regional Western Australian artist Helen Ansell is based in Mahalia, the centre of WA's wildflower country, and her art is so vibrant and inspired. Hello, Helen. How is the weather in Mahalia today?
It is raining here as well, but we're all rejoicing.
You're rejoicing. Is it good for the land?
It's great for the crops that are being seeded at the moment, and it's fantastic for the wildflowers.
Oh, yes. Oh, my gosh. You must see some amazing, beautiful things living in Mahalia.
Yeah, and every year is different, and every year we get excited to see what's going to come up.
Wow. So please tell me a bit about the inspiration behind your artistic works and artistic life, including the wildflowers.
Yeah, so all of my work is inspired by West Australian flora and fauna. I've been painting wildflowers I've been painting for 20 years, but I've probably been painting wildflowers for about 15 years. And I moved out here to Mahalia about 5 years ago, which I'm very lucky is the heart of wildflower country up here. So all of my work is kind of inspired by my natural environment, which is amazing.
That's beautiful. And what was your childhood growing up in Yilala like? Please tell us about that. And when did you fall in love with painting?
So I grew up in between Meekatharra and my dad had a station 2 hours inland from there called Yilala, which basically operated as an Aboriginal community from when I was about 8 years old. He was out there for about 30 years. And so I grew up with the Indigenous community that used to sleep under the stars and sit around the campfire at night and tell stories and go emu egg hunting and all these amazing childhood experiences that I think you never really fully appreciate your childhood until you're adult, and then you realise what an amazing opportunity that you had. And it's the same with the flowers. I grew up with fields of wildflowers, but it wasn't until I moved overseas in my 20s and then came back to Australia that I actually started to appreciate how amazing the wildflowers are in Australia, especially Western Australia. We have over 10,000 varieties, which is more than anywhere else in the whole world, even the rest of Australia. And it wasn't until I lived overseas and then came back that I started looking at Australia through fresh eyes and just appreciating our amazing flora and fauna. And that's when I started painting flowers when I got back from that trip.
I know this may be difficult. What is 2 or 3 of your favourite wildflower kinds? Or is it too hard to choose?
So one of my favourite wildflowers to paint is the Banksia. So there's, I don't even know how many Banksias are. There's probably at least 50 different varieties. Some flowers like wattles, there's over 900 varieties of them. But Banksias to me are just really big and bold and they look like a painting in themselves. So they're just so dramatic. I love all the shapes and textures. And so I've done a lot of different types of Banksia paintings.
I suppose they're quite intricate to paint, different aspects.
Yeah, my work is very much about patterns and shapes. And so that really excites me.
Yes. And being overseas, in your 20s, how did your career as an artist develop?
So I never trained in art. I have actually got my degree at Edith, Cowan. I have a degree in social science. And it was one of those weird things where the doors to what I had trained in kept shutting and doors to art kept opening. And I was like, okay, everyone says, oh, if you do art, you should have a backup job. But it was the opposite. Art became my backup job. And when I went overseas, I knocked on a lot of gallery doors, didn't really get a lot of interest at the time, which was over 20 years ago now. The artwork in Edinburgh was very conservative. There was lots of realistic landscapes and black and white photographs of the castle, and my work was really bright and bold and colourful. So I ended up hiring spaces of my own, some really funky bars and cafes, and had exhibitions, and they were all sellouts, and I did really well. And a big pivotal point for me was being part of the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, which is one of the biggest arts festivals in the world. And I had a little market stall, and each day they estimate that 30,000 people walk down the Royal Mile past these stalls. So I met people from all around the world and was able to sell prints of my work to, 20 different countries in 3 weeks. And I was able to quit my job. I just had a job in a little art shop and become a full-time artist. I was able to hire a studio and pay for 6 months in advance. And I kind of lived the dream, painting full-time and making a full-time living from being an artist. I was just pinching myself. It was amazing.
What a story.
Yeah, and then my visa expired and I cried all the way home to Australia because I just loved my life. I left stuff in a friend's attic because I was like, no, I'm coming back. But like I said, when I came back to Australia, I actually started to appreciate it a lot more. And instead of moving back to Perth, I actually moved back out to my dad's community in the desert. And I just thought, wow, if any of my friends from Scotland could come and visit me and just see this complete untouched wilderness. There are parts out there that, people may not have even seen. The station's 300,000 acres, and sometimes there'd only be 10 people there. So, when I came back, I did appreciate it after all. But at the time, like I said, I cried on the plane all the way home.
Understandable. How do you connect with regional communities through your art and also being based in Mahalia?
So one of the first jobs that I did after I got back was I was asked to run the Aboriginal Arts Centre in Wiluna, Chukaba Art Gallery. And while I was there, I connected with an amazing arts organisation called Form, who were running a project called the Cunning Stock Group Project, which ended up touring all around Australia, and the National Gallery of Canberra ended up purchasing the entire collection. And then through Form, I was invited to go up to Port Hedland, set up an Aboriginal Art Centre up there. And so that became the Spin Effects Hill artists, who've now got their own full-time studio. And from there, I started working in, funnily enough, Greenough Regional Prison, which I loved. There were so many people from all different communities, very talented artists that I was able to connect with there. And then over the last few years, I just get invited to different places. I try and limit how much travel I do as I've got young kids, but in the next couple of weeks I'm going out to Meekatharra to do a mural out there. And it's just been an amazing opportunity for me to be able to go into communities and to do art. But also growing up in Meekatharra and Wiluna gave me an amazing advantage that when I go into a lot of communities, like sometimes I'd go all the way up to somewhere like Derby and I'd think, I won't know anybody here, but I'll talk to someone I found from Wiluna and they'll go, I've got an auntie in Wiluna. Do you know such and such? And, being such a small town, we all know everybody. And so straight away I can have a connection with somebody in that town. So, it's led to a lot of amazing opportunities for me. And one of the most exciting ones was I got to go to Arnhem Land a few years ago and teach a textile workshop up there. So that was a bit of a dream come true as well.
That does sound like a dream. Where can people admire, find or purchase your artwork currently?
So in Perth, I have my work in Aspects in Kings Park, in Fremantle Arts Centre, in Mundaring Arts Centre, and a few retail shops around the place as well. They're all listed on my website, which is helenansell.com. And I sell all of my work online as well. But my original paintings I have here in my gallery in Mahalia. And I made a decision a few years ago to not have Perth exhibitions, but instead to have my work here and encourage people to come up for a road trip, see the wildflowers and see my art while they're here.
That's fantastic. That's a beautiful way to do it. I want to come and visit for a trip. That sounds amazing.
I would love you to come and visit. That'd be great.
Yes. So that was helenansell.com. So Ansell, Ansell. And Helen, thank you so much for stopping by this afternoon.
Oh, thank you for having me.